Hi, I'm Lyn Christian from SoulSalt, and today we're going to talk about how to market your coaching practice. And you are in for a special treat because my guest today is going to be Jon Nastor, the author of Hack the Entrepreneur, and a man who believes that you can build a business online and you can earn the living that you want to. And there's no better time to do that than today. And he's going to share some of the tools that he's used in terms of marketing himself. I'm going to talk about some of the ways that I market myself and how you can get a brand, step into that brand, stand up for that brand, and let that brand be seen and noted. So those are some of the topics that we're going to talk about. Listen carefully, because Johnny will actually give you the percentage of time, the secret to how much of your working time needs to be dedicated to marketing. I hope you enjoy this interview with this world-class thought leader in marketing. So I'm excited to introduce Jon Nastor. He is, to me, the real deal. And so I'm exposing you to one of the best minds that I know is out there producing SEO-related marketing and just downright good advice for if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach who's working for yourself, or any kind of entrepreneur. This is a guy who can help you hack that job title and succeed. So welcome, Jon.
Oh, thank you so much, Lyn.
Yeah, and today what we're going to do is focus in on individuals like myself who are coaches. And of course, what we'll talk about will translate to anybody who is a single or solopreneur sort of individual who's created a business. I like to say, you've decided you want to live your life and earn your living by doing that thing that inspires you. Then we have that entrepreneurial spark, and here we are running a business. And so welcome, I think, will appeal to those people. And in particular, we're talking about marketing. And the first thing I want to talk about, because you have a unique stand about a philosophy around your brand that I would like you to talk to, because I think one of the things that coaches come to me and ask, how did you brand yourself? How did you step into that brand? And then what? Then what do you do? So what's sort of your philosophy around branding?
So I'm going to put it in the simplest sense, which is to work to repel people rather than attract them. And I think that we need to, and this won't always happen immediately. When you create your brand, that brand to me can iterate a little bit while you sort of find it, the brand that's like really congruent with yourself. Right. But once you find that, you need to go all in and you need to push it all out. So with the idea of, rather than marketing in that older sort of traditional sense where you're trying to attract people from all around to your company, because of the internet, because of social media, because of exposure now, tons of people, millions of people can see you and what you're talking about or what you're doing. And your job is to repel as many of those people as possible and whittle it down to the few that are left standing. And those are going to be your true fans, your advocates, your best clients that you will possibly have, and the ones who go advocate for you even further. And that's just really, really just being yourself, and to certain degrees even emphasizing certain points that you maybe would have been taught to maybe dull down a little bit because it's not business worthy or something. Like the fact that I play drums in a punk rock band is something that I was told early on that I really shouldn't talk about too much in business. And I found that completely absurd because it's a huge part of me. It makes me happy. And it's just who I am. And if you're not into that, that's totally cool. You don't have to be into that. But the people who are left standing and are into it are my people. And that's really just owning yourself, owning your brand, and then just pushing it out there. And just every time somebody says like, oh, and they leave, just be happy about that, because that's really what your goal is.
True. I think it's so, I think it's counter to what most people believe. We want to cast a huge net and pull in the masses. And the truth of it is, we want the raving fans. We want the people who will go through the thick and thin and who resonate and who are our people. That's the value. And I know when I send clients to you, Jon, one of the criteria that you said is nice to have is that they know the value of the long life of getting a new client. And so are you talking, is that what you're talking about? The longevity of having somebody who's all in, they get who you are, quirks and all, that's why they like you. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and it does. There's a longer timeline to it, so it again goes contrary to old school marketing of sort of direct marketing and trying to attract people right now who can maybe take your offer, and they don't really know anything about you, and you actually kind of like that. You don't want them to. You want them to just quickly make this decision and give you money. But the value transaction and that relationship that gets built isn't right, because they don't know enough about you, and then they find out about you as the relationship evolves, and then they're like, oh, this wasn't right, and it's no good. But if you have this sort of medium to longer cycle of people getting to know you through consuming things that you already create, then that's settled. That's settled already, and you're already starting off, even just in your discovery call, you're on such a better footing than person who's just like, well, I don't know anything about you. Could you tell me? It's like, you know so much about me. You probably know too much about me already, but you're still into it. And that's actually why you want to work with me. And so to me, that's where the relationship really sets off in the right place. It's the same reason why we shouldn't meet somebody at the pub tonight and get married at the same time, right?
Right.
There's things you might find out tomorrow or the next day that you're like, oh, I probably shouldn't have married this person. So to me, that is like,
Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Yes. Should not be so impetuous. So
Exactly.
okay, so here's what I'm going to summarize that you've taught us so far. It's okay to take time and explore. In my case, I founded my company in 1998, and it wasn't until 2002 before I branded. And I felt like that was the best thing I could have done. So we're both, Jon and I, are encouraging our audience here to explore who are you and what do you do and what do you stand for? What do you not stand for? So let your brand sort of congeal around you. And in my case, I just worked for those many years and then took the best samples of the people that I felt like got me, and I got them, my best clients, and had them talk to the marketing people. And that's when they came up with a company called, well, You're the Salt of the Soul. And then I transposed it to SoulSalt. So the brand fit before I even knew it fit, because it came not from me, it came from the clients. And then once you do that, be brave enough to repel people and not try to attract everyone. And then when you do, and I know this, Jon, when you attract the people that are going to be your raving fans and you repel the people who won't be, now you have the power of customer evangelism behind those people, because they're going to talk about you in the way that you want to be talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they get it.
They get it. Yeah. And that get it factor, they can translate it to our clients, our future clients and potential clients, faster and better than we can. Their words are the words that other person needs to hear, not our words about what we do.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you suggest that a coach can, today with the technology available, can stand out from the crowd?
Teach everything that you know and do it publicly and do it online and promote it in ways that you can. Again, there's a clash between sort of this older mentality and this newer mentality where you can't give away your secrets. And I'm not telling you to give away your secrets, obviously, but you need to be creating content. It's just the way the world works. You create free content that is you teaching things that you teach clients already, with this sole aim of attracting a specific target audience. And of course, other people will get attracted within that, and then it's your job to repel them. But we want more people, right? We want those prospects that we're going after, and we want them to be aware of us, and we want them to know what it is we know. We want them to understand our expertise without us having to tell them, I'm an expert in this. They've already consumed stuff that they just, when they think of whatever your subject happens to be, right? When somebody thinks of SEO or email marketing now, I hope that they think about me. Without me telling them like, well, I'm an expert in that. And they're like, well, how do you prove that? It's already been proven
Right.
because I've taught that stuff, right? And it can position you against competitors who will not do this. And most competitors still will not do this because they're afraid of giving away everything, right? So there are some ways that I would suggest, I guess, to help you alleviate this, but also so you don't give away everything. Free content that you give away, your teachings that you give away, they shouldn't give free access to you. So they shouldn't be offering just free calls and free direct, like you shouldn't be in the comments completely like laying out like giant pages of information. That's for paid clients, always.
Okay.
You've already given them really thorough information. And you also shouldn't, in the simplest sense, you shouldn't give away the how of what it is you do. Always focus on sort of like the why and the what of what this problem is. The why and the what of the problem and also the solution, and not so much the how, because the how is obviously what you sell. And then you should be covering sort of like the more, I guess like the more rudimentary sort of things in the baseline level of stuff, because therefore you still have ways to escalate people. But you should be giving away tons of it all of the time, because that's how we find customers these days. That's how clients, like, they learn to like us and love us and understand our expertise. And then once they're coming and attracting to you, then you need to repel the ones that aren't into you, and the ones that are left standing. Like, this works so well, I just want to say, to the fact that I have like a full client roster at this point, and I don't have an offer for coaching or client work anywhere.
Anywhere.
People, and literally just before this call, I had to respond to another email of just somebody like, do you do coaching by any chance? I've been listening to your podcast for like 8 months, and it's kind of comical to the point where people are telling me, it's like, you should put up an offer. And it's like, I don't know, this is kind of working, which is the exact opposite problem that lots of coaches have, especially lots of coaches starting out, but even some coaches further on, is they've got the perfect offers up on their website. Everything's just great. And it's like, there's nobody there to see it. And if somebody does happen to stumble across, you haven't taught them anything or shown them anything about yourself. They don't even know if you're right for them. So they just carry on to the next person, and they go and listen to my podcast, or they go read my book, or they read some articles that I've written somewhere. And that sort of allows them to be indoctrinated into what it is, who it is I am, and what it is I can offer, to the point where eventually they're just like, okay, well, he's not offering me this service, so maybe I'll just reach out to them. And I probably lose a ton of clients like that. And that's totally fine. I'm not worried about that, and I'm not trying again to attract every single person. I'm trying to attract people that are right for me. And at this point, the people that are right for me are actually willing enough to just step up and ask and come out right and talk to me. And I don't need more clients. It's not something I'm going for, but I still produce content to find more at all times.
Yes, you always have the free content out there circulating. So let's give a couple of examples of the why and the what. I'm going to use one. One of my favorite people that I follow is Brene Brown. I just get that lady right down to the point that she'll throw words out like, I'm not bullshitting you, and she'll say the word.
Some people turn her off right there. Perfect.
Boom. And so I listened to her first TED Talk about vulnerability. Maybe it was a TEDx talk. And I thought, who is this person? And then I found out she had a book. And so I read the book, and then following her there and here. And I now have a little shrine. It could be called a shrine, where I have all of her books. And I'm thinking about going to one of her trainings. And that was maybe 7 years in the making. With you, I became exposed to, and okay, so let's go back to the why and the what. I found out that what she's talking about is vulnerability and being courageous with your knees shaking and still doing that thing that's being driven from within. And her why is to support us to dare to lead, to dare to be bold, to go in the arena and get dirty and not try to be in the perfectionist mode. Now, how you do that? Well, you're going to have to buy a book, or you're going to have to go to one of our trainings. But there's this grit about her. For you, I found out about you because Sunny Brown sent me a text one day. I was working in San Francisco, and she was like, oh, by the way, we just posted this podcast from Hack the Entrepreneur with Jon Nastor. You need to listen to it because I mentioned your name. So I'm listening, and I'm like, all along, because I have a connection with Sunny, and of course I was listening for my name. But I was like, who is this Jon Nastor? I mean, he knows what he's talking about. Like, you sucked me in and you were giving me some of the what of you do, because you were a great interviewer and you brought out a lot of great questions with Sunny. But the why, I started catching on. This guy's helping people hack that entrepreneurial mindset, that entrepreneurial way of doing business, that we need somebody in the trenches. So am I catching on to the why and the what of what we need to be giving out there for free?
Yes.
What do you want to add?
And it's obviously, it's nuanced. You go to my blog and I write a ton of how-to articles. You just have a how-to article that you wrote. And they're how-to, but in these articles, there's a lot of why and what. And I should probably think of a better way to say this, but I often call it like selling the dream, like selling the transformation, selling the outcome of if you learn the how of doing this. Obviously, I think everybody's aware, even though they're searching for how to be a badass on Google at night while they like drink a margarita, is they're not expecting to read a blog post and be a badass at the end of it. But that is what they're searching for. And so you have to find them that way. And then in that, to really intrigue them and engage them, you do have to give some why and some what, because that's the goal. And then they can decide if that what and why actually aligns with the reasons that they want this transformation as well. And so it is nuanced, but to me, that's the simplest way for people to get their head around, am I giving away too much? It's like, well, you can't lay out exactly, obviously, everything, the how that you would help a client. It just, mostly because it can't be portrayed in a blog post or on a podcast episode. It's just how it is, right? And so in a way, you just have to think about that transformation that your client gets from you and that they want from you, that needs to be in there. So even if it's a how-to blog post, that needs to be in there, because that's what's going to grab them, is that transformation. And they'll be like, and they'll still be thinking how, but that's actually the why of that they want this transformation. Then once they realize that, okay, then they'll read some more of your stuff and then eventually end up on your email list. And then hey, Lyn, I was just like, can I sign up to do coaching so you can teach me how to be a badass? You're like, okay, go here to the intake form.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a great answer. And what I'm hearing is not to be afraid that I think a lot of people get enamored with their content. And then they want to just give the how-tos, which are really valuable to the audience. You want to give that meat and potatoes. But the truth is, for your work and my work, it can't totally translate in its entirety through a blog or even through a book like it can when somebody works directly with us. So in your case, it's like, okay, I got a piece of who you were, and then I sampled this, and then you had this great download book, and that validated me, where I was like, oh, here are like 21 ways people can make money online. I was like, yes. And I think that's where our actual conversation started to happen. And then, like you said, we just published How to Be a Badass. And so we have people who are like, oh, okay, so maybe I'm going to watch her Facebook Live, or I'm going to do this, and then reach in, and they want that next piece, because there's only so much you can get from an article or a book. All right, so let's go to, unless there's something more you want to say on that topic.
We're starting to get really into like the how, and I don't want to overwhelm people, but when you go and read the How to Be a Badass article, look for the why and the what in there, but then you'll also notice that there's very obvious places to give us the email address, or to give you the email address, because that is where you now get direct contact with these people, and you really get to push them to either like you or to leave, which is fine. And that's when you can kind of repeat and build that relationship up over time. And that's sort of like, in a nutshell, how we do this. because people are so inundated with content and with social media posts and everything. We do need to find a way to attract them and then bring them into email, because then we get consistent relationship building with them until they hit unsubscribe or until they say, I want more from you.
Right. So that's the thing, is you put out the free with the why and the what, maybe a sprinkling of the how. They will eventually, because you have, you call them lead magnets or lead honey.
Yeah.
They find something that they want from you. They trade their email for that valuable piece of information. That's the e-commerce of, I give you this, you give me that. That's our trade. And then from there, it goes into a cycle of repelling off the people who are not raving fans or not the evangelists, and continuing to attract and nurture and cultivate a relationship. Like, I've been hired 10 years after something's been published. I've been hired 5 years, 7 years later. So that's the value of having things out there constantly, is then you create this trickle effect, right?
Exactly. You get to create the trickle effect, and you also get to offer people to escalate the relationship at the speed that they want to. Another problem that we often fall into is we sort of like sell from our heels, as they say, where we're afraid to put that offer in front of people sometimes. And so many times it's actually like detrimental to your prospects' like outcome, because they need your help right now. And they don't have the access to it. And so they just have to either go somewhere else, or they have to continue struggling along without that outcome that you can provide. Email allows us to sort of work our way into that and find when it is that they want to escalate the relationship or end the relationship, which is also fine.
Right, because I know some of the things I've purchased, like my last mentor, Judith E. Glaser, I jumped into a year. It was longer than a year by the time we finished immersion with her, but I saw the opportunity to join what she was doing 7 or 8 times before I actually got that jolt that said, what about this person? I'm going to listen to one of her YouTubes. Oh, I need to know this person. And I put down the cash and signed up. There's that repetitive thing too, where when the need is there, that person is available. Or also be willing to know that some people may never reach out, but they may be following you. I have followers that I know I'll never meet, but they're following me all over the globe, and I'm just astounded at times when they say something on Instagram as if I know them intimately, but I know they know me better than that. They know me pretty intimately, and they're commenting on something, and then it's like, wow, that was just built up by this system that you have of being out there, constantly putting something out there for free in the content, the why and the what.
Exactly. And think again of that, like first meeting somebody tonight and then asking them to marry you. It doesn't work that way. It's sort of a slow escalation of a relationship, more serious and more serious, and allowing the person to do that at their pace. So they find your article, the how to be a badass, they read it, they get the what and the why, then the how a little bit. And then you'll notice when you're asking for the email, it's not just like, join my newsletter. That has nothing to do now with what they're just doing. You provide something for an email address that's a step in the right direction towards that thing. It has to be connected in that way. And so they're just like, yeah, I want to go that next step further. There it is. I'll give you my email. And now you can take them and escalate them towards that transformation.
Right.
And it's always just stepping it up until it's either time to marry them or they just decide to leave. One of the two. But you just have to kind of think of it like that, where you just do that. You don't just sort of drag it along where you want to allow them to do that. And if you consciously go to the article and read it and think about it like that, you'll see and feel it, how it works. And this usually happens subconsciously, but I'm telling you exactly how this one's working. And that's the reason behind it.
Yes, I think that you've explained that so well. And I'm going to throw in there why I may not have been patient with the process. So listeners, maybe you can relate. John, maybe you can relate. A lot of times when we're still wet behind the ears, we're still young, and we've just been birthed into this entrepreneurial world. And sometimes it's 5 years later, 10 years later, 2 months after we've stepped into the arena. We have a need for cash. we need to have our business making money. So we associate cash flow with marketing. So we do marketing expecting to get cash flow. And if that's the case, let me just say, step away from that mindset. For me, I built my business on 18 months of marketing and getting my whole clientele ready before I expected it to start giving me a paycheck. I didn't have the need of cash leading, so I could put into play a marketing strategy and have it functioning so the trickle was coming in constantly, and that's when I started taking a paycheck. So at the time, I worked part-time at SoulSalt and full-time at a full-time gig. Some of you may be doing it a different way, but don't you agree that that need for cash sometimes muddies the water as to being patient with a marketing process?
Yes, yes. And it can end up being a vicious cycle, because you might also get the opportunity to, through a traditional means, get the opportunity to get a client or two at a really, really reduced rate. And now you're even busier and you don't have the time to do the work to find the right clients. And that's a real bad problem to do. And so, I mean, I did it the same way. When I first came online, I had a job and I spent evenings and nights for 7 months working to build the business, because that's how I wanted to do it. I knew it had to be like that. And so definitely, if you're being attracted to the sort of the digital side of it, go for the digital side. If you're being attracted to the offline side of it, go to the offline side. But get one of those working really well first. Don't try and jump between, because it's really hard then. It's already hard enough, but you need to really focus and really focus on that marketing and drawing in these people that will be the right people.
Right. That's so well said. Well, last question for you on this piece about getting the Jon Nastor magic around marketing. Do you have a piece of advice for coaches in particular around marketing? It's just for the coach.
Spend 20% of your time marketing. Writing, podcasting, being on interviews like this or on social media. And if you're instantly thinking, well, Jon, I don't have 20% of my time, you have to charge more for what you're doing. 1 day a week needs to be dedicated to marketing and when I say marketing, it's exactly like I've been saying, which is creating content, not just spend a full day creating an ad. I mean, create content, put it out there, share your knowledge, because that is going to allow you or enable you to charge more money for your service. And that's I guess, to solo entrepreneur people. Once you get a team around you, then you as the coach don't have to spend as much time, because you can spend less time and have a team doing it for you. But you have to have that consistent marketing. And it's that whole problem that if you take on clients for too low of a rate because you just want more clients, now all of a sudden you have no time for marketing. And it's this cycle that never ends. And so you have to find a way, whether that's through another job, so that you can make money to only take on clients that pay you the right amount, and you can just continue marketing. But 20%, every single week, 1 full day of my day is 100% marketing. It just has to be. And that gets really hard sometimes, because it's okay, now I got to work on Saturdays for clients just to keep it going, because there's so much to do. But at the same time, I cannot stop marketing, because as soon as 2 clients finish their cycle with me, it's now what do? It's you stop marketing, and now you're stuck. And now it's 6 months of no clients coming in because you got too busy and you stopped marketing. The more you market, the better you educate people with your knowledge and share everything that you know, the more you can charge for it. And then you can even enable yourself to have more time to market if you wish, or you can just keep it to 20% or even 10% if you want. And I guess that would be, if you're really struggling, is 10%. So think of it like Monday afternoon. For your whole week, take Monday afternoon, write something, create a podcast, go on interviews, go on social media. I mean, we all, I think, can admit you could convince yourself that you were doing stuff on social media all afternoon, but you're probably just wasting time. Write an article, and even just take stuff, repurpose things that you've made for clients previously, and repurpose it, and think about how you can share that information. Maybe it's PDFs that you make for them. Maybe it's processes that you lay out for them, anything it could be, repurpose that and make it so it's more generic and share that with people. Because that is what's going to draw in these other people that will then allow you to grow your business.
Okay, audience, you have just been given some of the best free advice I've ever heard around marketing. And this is from a guy who knows a thing or two. So, Johnny, thank you for helping us understand a few questions around marketing in an age of technology.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you've been as impressed with Johnny Nastor as I am. From being a proud father to being a drummer in a punk rock band, Johnny is also indeed a leader, a thought leader in marketing, and is particularly in online digital business. Now that you've listened to him, some other ways to stay in touch with him would be to go out and listen to Hack the Entrepreneur podcast. He's also a co-founder of The Showrunner, which is a podcast, a very unusual podcast about podcasting. And he's written the book, Hack the Entrepreneur. Follow the links inside the article that you see below this video and go out and find out what Johnny Nastor can help you do to market your business. Best wishes.